The USS Valiant moved through the darkness of space like a steel predator hunting in deep water. Her hull was thick and gray, covered in armor plates that had been designed to survive the worst weapons humanity had ever created. She was not a ship built for exploration or diplomacy. She was a warship, and every inch of her design made that clear. Captain Daniel stood on the bridge with his hands clasped behind his back. He was a tall man with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. He had served in the Earth Defense Fleet for over 20 years, and he had learned one important lesson in that time. The universe was not a friendly place, and the only thing that kept humanity safe was the ability to hit back harder than anyone who hit them first. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of computer systems and the occasional beep of sensor equipment. The crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They had been on patrol for 3 weeks now, moving along the outer edge of human-controlled space near the Arcturus Nebula. It was boring work, but boring was good. Boring meant no one was dying. Lieutenant Commander Amy Porter looked up from her tactical station. She was a woman in her early 30s with red hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her uniform was always perfect, and her eyes were always sharp. She had served under for 5 years, and she knew him well enough to see that he was worried about something. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from Earth Command," she said. Turn to face her, put it through. The main screen flickered, and a young officer appeared. His face was tense, and his voice carried the kind of urgency that made everyone on the bridge pay attention. "Captain, we have detected unidentified vessels moving through neutral territory approximately 2 light years from your current position. We need you to investigate and report back. Do not engage unless fired upon. Earth Command out." The screen went dark, stared at it for a moment, then turned to his navigator. Lisa Grant was sitting at the helm, her fingers already moving across her console. She was young, maybe 25, with dark skin and bright eyes that seemed to catch every detail on her screens. She was one of the best navigators in the fleet, and she had a talent for finding things that did not want to be found. "I have the coordinates," she said. "There is an abandoned mining colony in that sector. Old Earth operation, shut down about 50 years ago. If someone wanted to hide, that would be a good place to do it." Nodded, set a course, best speed. The Valiant turned and accelerated into the void. The stars stretched and blurred as the ship pushed toward the speed of light. The journey would take several hours, and used that time to prepare his crew for whatever they might find. Chief Engineer Moore came to the bridge an hour before they arrived. He was a big man with thick arms and hands that were always stained with grease, no matter how many times he washed them. He had kept the Valiant running through more battles than anyone could count, and he knew every system on the ship like he knew his own heartbeat. "Captain, I have run full diagnostics on all weapons and shields," he said. "We are ready for whatever is out there." Appreciated the confidence, but he also knew that readiness only went so far. They had no idea what they were walking into. The aliens that humanity had encountered so far had ranged from curious to hostile, and there was no way to predict which kind they would meet today. Weapons Officer Cole checked his targeting systems for the 10th time. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. But when the shooting started, he was the most valuable person on the ship. His accuracy with the main guns was legendary, and he had saved the Valiant more than once with a well-placed shot. "Dropping out of faster-than-light travel in 30 seconds, Lisa announced. The crew tensed, felt his heart beat a little faster, but his face remained calm. A captain could never show fear. His crew needed to see strength, even when he did not feel it. The stars snapped back into focus as the Valiant slowed to normal speed. The abandoned mining colony floated in the distance, a collection of old platforms and empty docking stations. It looked dead, just as the record said it should be. But something was wrong. "Captain," Amy said, her voice tight, I am detecting a massive energy signature. It is not coming from the colony. It is coming from behind us. Spun around on screen. The main display shifted, and everyone on the bridge stopped breathing. A ship was approximately 50,000 kilometers off their starboard side. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Valiant. Its hull was smooth and organic, like something grown rather than built. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. "What is that?" Lisa whispered. No one answered. They had never seen anything like it. "Red alert," ordered. "All hands to battle stations. Charge weapons but do not fire. I want to try talking first." The alarms began to wail throughout the ship. Crew members ran to their positions, and the Valiant came alive with the energy of a vessel preparing for war. Studied his readings with growing concern. "Captain, that ship is charging some kind of scanning array. It is aimed directly at us." Opened his mouth to give an order, but he was too late. A brilliant blue beam shot out from the alien vessel and swept across the Valiant from front to back. The light passed through the hull like it was not even there. Every system on the ship flickered for just a moment, and then the beam was gone. "What did they just do to us?" Amy demanded. Was staring at his console with wide eyes. "They scanned us, everything. Our weapons, our shields, our computer systems. They took all of it." Felt a cold knot form in his stomach. The aliens had just downloaded every piece of information the Valiant carried. Every weapon specification, every tactical database, every historical record stored in the ship's memory banks. They now knew everything about humanity. And humanity knew nothing about them. Looked at the alien ship floating in the darkness, and for the first time in a very long time, he felt truly afraid. Not because the aliens were bigger or stronger, but because he knew exactly what information they had just taken. They had taken humanity's history, all of it, every war, every weapon, every atrocity committed in the long and bloody climb from caves to the stars. The aliens had wanted to learn about the newcomers to their region of space. They were about to get far more than they bargained for. The command vessel Endless Dominion had ruled this sector of space for 300 years. Her crew had scanned over 200 alien civilizations, and every single one of them had proven to be weak, primitive, and easily conquered. High Commander Eth had overseen many of these scans personally, and he had grown bored with the process. Every species was the same. They developed technology, they reached for the stars, and they carried with them the same peaceful hopes and fragile dreams. None of them had ever posed a real threat. Eth stood in the center of his command chamber, his tall gray body wrapped in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the soft purple lights. His face was long and angular, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. He had led the expansion fleet for over 60 cycles, and in all that time, he had never once retreated from an enemy vessel. The small ship they had discovered was clearly human. They had heard rumors about this species for several cycles now. They were newcomers to space travel, having only ventured beyond their home system in the last 100 years. Eth had expected them to be like all the others, young, naive, easy to catalog and easier to control. Sub-Commander stood at his station, monitoring the scan as it progressed. He was younger than Eth, eager to prove himself, and he watched the data streams with hungry eyes. "The scan is complete," High Commander reported. "We have full access to their weapons systems, shield configurations, and historical databases." Eth made a gesture of dismissal. "Send the data to analyst for review. I want a full report before we decide whether to destroy them or simply let them go." In her analysis chamber, began sorting through the information. She was the most skilled intelligence officer on the ship, and she approached every new species with scientific curiosity. Her job was to assess threats, identify weaknesses, and provide recommendations for conquest. It was work she had done hundreds of times before. She started with the weapon systems, expecting to find the usual collection of primitive energy weapons and basic projectile launchers. What she found instead made her stop and look again. The human ship was carrying nuclear weapons, dozens of them, warheads designed to destroy entire cities with a single blast. But that was not the surprising part. The surprising part was that these weapons were considered old technology by human standards. They had developed them over 200 years ago. Move to the next section of the database. Kinetic kill vehicles. Massive projectiles designed to accelerate to incredible speeds and strike targets with the force of a small asteroid. The humans called them rods from God, and they had been designed to destroy underground bunkers and hardened military targets. Her hands began to tremble as she continued reading. Directed energy weapons capable of burning through planetary atmospheres. Biological agents engineered to target specific genetic profiles. Chemical weapons that could kill thousands in minutes. Electromagnetic pulse devices designed to destroy all electronic systems within a massive radius. These were not defensive weapons. These were weapons of total annihilation, and the humans had created them while they were still confined to a single planet. Felt her heart's beating faster as she opened the historical database. She needed to understand how this species had developed such terrible tools of destruction. She needed to see what kind of civilization could create weapons designed to end all life. The images that filled her screen made her wish she had never asked. She saw trenches filled with dead bodies, soldiers from something called World War I dying by the millions in mud and poison gas. She saw cities burning, flames rising into the sky as bombs fell from primitive aircraft. She saw a mushroom cloud rising over a place called Hiroshima, and she read that a single weapon had killed over 100,000 humans in an instant. And that was just the beginning. She saw images of something called the Holocaust, where humans had systematically murdered millions of their own kind based on their ethnic origin. She saw the killing fields of Cambodia, the genocide in Rwanda, the mass graves scattered across every continent of their home world. The humans had not developed these weapons to fight aliens. They had developed them to fight each other. Pushed back from her console and tried to control her breathing. In all her years of analyzing alien species, she had never seen anything like this. Every other civilization she had studied had grown beyond their violent origins before reaching space. They had learned to cooperate, to build peaceful societies, to channel their energy into exploration and discovery. The humans had done the opposite. They had taken their violence with them. They had refined it, perfected it, and carried it into the stars like a beloved treasure. She composed herself and walked to the command chamber. High Commander Eth turned to face her, expecting the usual brief report on another inferior species. High Commander said, "We have made a serious mistake." Eth's four eyes narrowed. "Explain." Activated the display screen and began showing the images from the human database. She explained the weapons, the wars, the endless cycle of violence that had defined human history from their earliest records to the present day. "They call themselves Homo," she said. "In their language, it means wise man. But there is nothing wise about what they have done. They have spent their entire existence as a species fighting and killing each other. They developed weapons of mass destruction while they were still using chemical rockets to reach orbit. They built bombs that could end all life on their planet before they even set foot on their own moon." Laughed nervously. "Surely this is some kind of error. No species could be this self-destructive and still survive." Shook her head. "That is what makes them so dangerous. They are self-destructive and yet they survive, they thrive. They take their wars and their weapons and they keep moving forward. Nothing stops them, not even themselves." Eth stared at the images on the screen. He saw human soldiers charging into battle, their faces twisted with fury and determination. He saw cities reduced to rubble and rebuilt again. He saw a species that had every reason to destroy itself but refused to die. "What are your recommendations?" he asked quietly. Hesitated. In 300 years of expansion, no analyst had ever made the recommendation she was about to give. "We should leave," she said. "Immediately, we should leave and never come back." The command chamber fell silent. Eth looked at the small human ship floating in space, its primitive hull from battles it had already survived. He thought about his own fleet, about the thousands of soldiers who served under his command, about the empire that had stood unchallenged for centuries. And for the first time in his long life, High Commander Eth felt afraid. The bridge of the USS Valiant was filled with tension so thick it felt like a physical weight pressing down on everyone present. The alien ship hung in space before them, massive and silent, its strange organic hull pulsing with lights that seemed to communicate in a language no human could understand. Captain Daniel gripped the armrests of his command chair and forced himself to think clearly. The scan had taken everything. Every file, every record, every piece of information stored in the ship's computer systems. The aliens now possessed complete knowledge of human technology, human history, and human nature. Lieutenant Commander Amy Porter was the first to speak. Her voice was sharp with barely controlled anger. "Captain, that scan was an act of war. They invaded our systems without permission. They took classified military data. We should respond with force." Weapons Officer Cole nodded in agreement. His hand was already resting on the firing controls, ready to unleash the full power of the Valiant's weapons at a moment's notice. "I have targeting solutions locked in. Say the word, Captain, and I will put everything we have into their hull." Understood their anger. He felt it too, but something held him back. Something in the way the alien ship had gone completely still after the scan was complete. It was not moving. It was not charging weapons. It was just sitting there as if waiting to see what the humans would do next. "Hold your fire," ordered. "No one shoots until I give the command." Amy turned to face him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Sir, they just violated every protocol of first contact. They scanned our entire database without consent. They know everything about us now." "I know," said quietly, "and that is exactly why we need to be careful." Chief Engineer Moore looked up from his console with a troubled expression. "Captain, I have been analyzing the scan they performed. It was not just a surface sweep. They went deep. Historical archives, cultural databases, military records going back centuries. They have everything." Lisa Grant turned from her navigation station. "What does that mean for us?" Stood up and walked toward the main. The alien ship filled the display, its impossible size making the Valiant look like a toy in comparison. He thought about what information that ship now contained, what stories it could tell about humanity. "It means they know who we are," he said. "Not just our technology, not just our weapons. They know our history. They know what we have done to each other. They know about the wars, the genocides, the nuclear weapons we built to destroy our own cities." The bridge fell silent. Every member of the crew understood what the captain was saying. Humanity's history was not a story of peaceful exploration and enlightened progress. It was a story of blood and fire, of empires rising and falling, of weapons growing ever more powerful with each passing generation. Amy stepped closer to, "Sir, if they know all of that, then they know we are dangerous. They might decide to destroy us before we become a threat." "They might," agreed, "or they might do something else entirely." Frowned. "What do you mean?" Turned to face his crew. These were good people, brave people. They had signed up to serve on a warship knowing that they might die in the cold emptiness of space. They deserved to understand what was happening. "Think about what they just learned," he said. "They learned that humans are the only species in history to develop nuclear weapons while still fighting wars on their home planet. They learned that we invented chemical weapons, biological weapons, and orbital bombardment systems, before we even had colonies on other worlds. They learned that we spent most of our existence trying to kill each other in the most efficient ways possible. Shifted uncomfortably. You make it sound like we should be ashamed. I am not talking about shame, said. I am talking about perception. Every alien species out there probably evolved beyond their violent phase before they reached the stars. They put down their weapons and picked up their telescopes. They learned to cooperate before they learned to travel faster than light. He gestured toward the... We did not do that. We brought our weapons with us. We brought our wars, our conflicts, our endless capacity for destruction. And now these aliens know it. The question is, what will they do with that knowledge? The alien ship remained motionless. Minutes passed in silence. The crew watched their screens, waiting for some sign of hostile action, but none came. Finally spoke up. Captain, I am detecting a change in their shield output. They just doubled their shield strength. Amy's hand moved to her weapon controls. They are preparing for battle. Or they are preparing to defend themselves, said. There is a difference. He made a decision. It was a risk, but everything in space was a risk. He walked to the communications station and opened a channel to the alien ship. This is Captain Daniel of the United Earth vessel Valiant. You scanned our ship without permission. You now possess full knowledge of our species, our history, and our capabilities. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. You know what we are. You know what we have done. You have seen our wars, our weapons, and our willingness to destroy ourselves rather than surrender. Now you have a choice. The bridge crew watched their captain with a mixture of fear and admiration. No one knew how the aliens would respond. No one knew if this message would lead to peace or to war. Continued. Leave this system now, and we will forget this encounter ever happened. We will report that we found nothing here, and your people and mine will never have to meet again. But if you stay, if you try to take anything more from us, you will learn that the weapons in our database are not relics of history. They are promises of what we will do to anyone who threatens our survival. He closed the channel and stepped back. The alien ship did not respond. It simply hung there in the darkness, massive and silent, its crew presumably debating what to do with the terrifying information they had just obtained. Amy moved to stand beside her captain. Do you think they will listen? Watched the alien vessel with steady eyes. I do not know, but I know one thing for certain. They are afraid of us now, and fear is a powerful thing. It can make enemies retreat, or it can make them attack before they lose their nerve. The Valiant waited, her weapons charged and ready, her crew prepared for whatever came next. The universe had just learned the truth about humanity. Now everyone would see what that truth was worth. The command chamber of the Endless Dominion had become a place of chaos and fear. High Commander Eth stood at the center of the room while his officers argued around him, their voices rising and falling in waves of panic and disbelief. Sub-Commander was packing back and forth, his four eyes darting between the screens that displayed the human data. This cannot be accurate. No species behaves this way. The data must be corrupted or... Analyst shook her head firmly. I have every piece of information 3 times. There is no corruption. There is no falsification. This is who they are. She pulled up another set of images on the main display. Look at this. They call it the Cold War. For nearly 50 years, the 2 most powerful nations on their planet pointed nuclear weapons at each other. They built enough bombs to destroy their entire world several times over. They came within minutes of launching those weapons on multiple occasions. Stopped packing, and they did not destroy themselves. No, said. They negotiated, they compromised. They stepped back from the edge, but they never dismantled the weapons. They kept them, maintained them, and built even more powerful ones. Eth listened to the human transmission that had been recorded moments ago. The captain's voice was calm and steady, without any trace of fear or desperation. He spoke like a predator who knew exactly how dangerous he was and felt no need to prove it. The High Commander had conquered dozens of species in his career. He knew what fear sounded like. He knew how prey begged for mercy when they realized they were outmatched. The human captain showed none of those signs. He spoke as an equal, perhaps even as a superior, despite commanding a ship that was tiny compared to the endless dominion. "What else did you find in their database?" Eth asked quietly. Hesitated. She had been hoping he would not ask that question. "I found their military training records. Every member of that ship's crew has ancestors who fought in wars, not defensive actions, not border skirmishes, real wars with millions of casualties." She pulled up a new file. The captain, Daniel, his great-grandfather fought in something called World War II. His grandfather served in a conflict in Vietnam. His father was deployed to the Middle East for 3 separate tours of duty. His mother served on a naval vessel during a territorial dispute in the Pacific Ocean. Stared at the screen. "Every generation." "Every generation," confirmed. "For this species, war is not an aberration. It is a tradition. They pass it down from parent to child like a sacred inheritance. They train their young to fight almost from birth. Their entertainment celebrates combat. Their heroes are warriors and conquerors. Violence is woven into every aspect of their culture." Another officer spoke up from the back of the chamber. "Then we should destroy them now, before they become a greater threat. We have superior firepower. One decisive strike would eliminate this ship and send a message to the rest of their species." Eth considered this option. It was the logical choice. They had always dealt with potential threats by eliminating them before they could grow into actual problems. It was how they had maintained their empire for 3 centuries. But something about this situation felt different. "Show me their response to attacks," he ordered. "What happens when someone strikes at them?" Pulling up records of human military history. The images that followed told a story that made every officer in the chamber uncomfortable. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, the humans did not surrender. They mobilized their entire economy for war and fought across 2 oceans until their enemies lay in ruins. When terrorists attacked their cities, they did not negotiate. They launched invasions that lasted decades and reshaped entire regions of their planet. When anyone pushed the humans, they pushed back harder. "They do not know how to surrender," said softly. "Other species, when faced with overwhelming force, will submit. They will accept defeat and try to survive under new rulers. The humans do not do this. They fight until they win or until they are completely destroyed. There is no middle ground for them." Made a sound of frustration. "Then what do you suggest we do? We cannot destroy them without risking massive retaliation. We cannot ignore them because they will only grow stronger. What option does that leave?" Eth turned away from the screens and walked to the observation window. The human ship was visible in the distance, small and insignificant against the vastness of space. It looked like nothing. It looked like prey. But he knew better now. "There is one thing that has kept the Empire strong for 300 years, he said. "We have always known when to fight and when to withdraw. We have never wasted resources on battles that could not be won. We have never let pride cloud our judgment." He turned back to face his officers. "This species is unlike anything we have ever encountered. They are not more advanced than us. They are not more powerful than us. But they are more dangerous than us. They have spent their entire existence perfecting the art of destruction. They have weapons we have never imagined and the will to use them without hesitation." Stepped forward. "High Commander, with respect, retreating from a single small vessel will make us look weak. Other species will hear of this. They will think we have lost our nerve." "Let them think what they want," Eth replied. "They did not build an empire by being stupid. We built it by being smart, and the smart choice here is clear." He walked to his command chair and sat down. His decision was made. "We will withdraw. We will leave this system and mark it as forbidden territory. We will send warnings to every species in our network. The humans are not to be engaged. They are not to be provoked. They are to be avoided at all costs. Bowed her head. A wise decision, High Commander. It is a necessary decision, Eth corrected her. The humans will continue to expand. They will encounter other species, other empires. And when they do, those empires will learn the same lesson we have learned today. He looked at the small human ship one last time. The galaxy has a new predator, and the only thing we can do is stay out of its way. Bridge of the USS Valiant had become a place of silent tension. Every crew member was frozen at their station, watching the alien vessel that hung in space before them. Minutes had passed since Captain sent his message, and the aliens had not responded. They had not moved. They had not fired. They had done nothing at all. Lieutenant Commander Amy Porter kept her eyes fixed on her tactical display. Her finger hovered near the weapon's controls, ready to unleash everything the Valiant had at a moment's notice. She did not believe in diplomacy when facing an unknown hostile force. She believed in firepower and the willingness to use it. Cole sat rigid at his station, targeting solutions constantly updating on his screen. The alien ship was massive, but it still had weak points. He had identified what looked like engine sections, communication arrays, and possible weapons emplacements. If the order came to fire, he would make every shot count. Chief Engineer Moore was monitoring power levels across the ship. The Valiant was operating at maximum combat readiness, every system pushed to its limits. He had diverted extra power to the shields and weapons, knowing that if a fight started, they would need every advantage they could get. Navigator Lisa Grant watched the alien vessel with wide eyes. She had joined the fleet to explore the stars, to see things no human had ever seen before. She had not expected her first alien encounter to be a standoff with a ship that could probably destroy them with a single volley. Captain stood at the center of it all, calm and steady. He had done what he could. He had spoken the truth and offered the aliens a choice. Now all he could do was wait and see what they decided. Captain said suddenly, I am detecting power fluctuations on the alien vessel. Amy's hand tightened on her controls. Are they charging weapons? No, replied, his voice filled with confusion. They are powering down their scanning array. Their weapons are going offline. It looks like they are preparing to move. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. The massive alien ship began to turn. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed, it rotated away from the Valiant. Its strange organic hull caught the light of distant stars as it moved, and for a moment it almost looked beautiful. They are retreating, Lisa whispered. They are actually retreating. Amy stared at her screens in disbelief. That does not make any sense. They could destroy us in seconds. Why would they run? Watched the alien ship accelerate toward open space. He knew exactly why they were running. They had scanned the Valiant. They had seen humanity's history. They had learned what humans were capable of when pushed into a corner. And they had decided that this was not a fight they wanted. Because they are smart, said quietly. They looked at us and saw something they did not expect. They saw a species that has spent its entire existence at war. A species that builds weapons of mass destruction for fun. A species that refuses to die no matter how hard the universe tries to kill it. Finally let his hand fall away from the weapon's controls. They were afraid of us. They were wise enough to be cautious, corrected. There is a difference. A scared enemy attacks before they lose their nerve. A wise enemy recognizes when the cost of victory is too high and chooses to walk away. The alien ship reached the edge of sensor range and stopped. For a moment, it hung there in the darkness, as if taking one last look at the small human vessel that had made the mighty empire retreat. Then reported something that made everyone on the bridge pay attention. Captain, they are broadcasting a signal. It is going out on all frequencies, wide beam transmission. Every ship within 50 light years will receive this message. Frowned, "Can you translate it?" Worked at his console for several seconds. "I am running it through our linguistic database. It is going to take a minute." The alien ship flickered with light, and then it was gone. The faster-than-light jump carried it away in an instant, leaving nothing but empty space where it had been. Amy let out a long breath she had not realized she was holding. "They are gone. They actually left." The bridge erupted in quiet celebration. Crew members exchanged relieved looks and whispered comments. They had survived an encounter with a vastly superior force without firing a single shot. It was nothing short of miraculous. But did not celebrate. He was still thinking about that broadcast. What message had the aliens sent? What had they told the rest of the galaxy about humanity? Finally looked up from his console. "Captain, I have the translation." "Put it on speaker," ordered. The alien voice filled the bridge, translated into flat mechanical English by the ship's computer. "Warning to all vessels and civilizations within range. The species known as humans from the Sol system are not to be engaged under any circumstances. They are a warrior species with a history of extreme violence and weapons capable of mass destruction. They show no fear of death and no hesitation in combat. Approach with extreme caution. Recommend complete avoidance of all human-controlled space. This warning comes from the Dominion. Heed it well." The message ended. The bridge fell silent. Lisa was the first to speak. "They just told everyone in the galaxy to stay away from us." "Not just stay away," Amy said slowly. "They told everyone that we are dangerous, that we are too dangerous to fight." Stared at the empty space where the alien ship had been. That had meant the message as a warning, a way to protect other species from making the same mistake they had almost made. But they had done something else as well. They had announced humanity's presence to the entire region. Every species that received that message would now know about Earth and its people. Some would be afraid, some would be curious, and some would see the warning as a challenge. Leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "Do you think they will listen, the other species out there?" "Some will," replied. "Some will not, but now they know, and maybe that is enough." He turned to face his crew. These brave men and women had stood ready to fight and die against impossible odds. They deserved to know what this moment meant. "Today we learned something important," he said. "We learned that the galaxy is not empty. It is filled with species that have been watching us, waiting to see what kind of people we are. And today they got their answer." He looked out at the stars, stretching endlessly in every direction. Humanity did not earn its place among the stars through diplomacy or enlightenment. We earned it the same way we earned everything else in our history, through blood, fire, and the unshakable will to survive. The galaxy has been warned. Whether they choose to listen is no longer our concern. The Valiant turned and resumed its patrol. Its crew was more aware than ever of the legacy they carried and the reputation they now held among the stars. Somewhere out there, alien civilizations were receiving the warning. They were learning about a small blue planet that had produced a species unlike any other, a species that had refused to leave its violence behind, a species that carried its wars into the cosmos like a badge of honor. The universe had wanted to know who the humans were. Now it knew, and it would never forget.